Hey friends, Peter Fasciano here. Welcome back to my Versus series on the Canon M6 Mark II and the Canon R6. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the 120 frames per second video. I have some information to give you, some things to watch out for, and then we're going to take a look at some of the video itself and see if you can spot the differences in the two. So let's go ahead and jump into today's video. All right, so I have to get a couple of things out of the way first. I'm switching back and forth between the M6 Mark II and the R6. I'm shooting at 30 frames per second, and the only reason why I'm doing that is because I didn't want to mess up the timelines shooting 120 frames per second, 24 frames per second, and then when I convert the 120 frames per second to a 30 frames per second timeline, I want to make it all consistent. Which brings me to my first point. When you shoot 120 frames per second, the cameras automatically change the frames per second to 30 frames per second. You don't have a choice. To access the 120 frames per second, both cameras work the exact same way. You're going to make sure that your mode dial at the top is set to the camera icon. You're going to hit your menu button. We're going to be taking a look at the red camera icon, number 1, movie record quality. When you select it, you'll see the high frame rate. It comes disabled. In order to enable it, you have to click on that, move over to enable. All right, and once you have it enabled, you're all set, ready to go. But there's an important note. As soon as you shoot 120 frames per second, in camera, it's going to convert it to a 30 frames per second timeline or a 30 frames per second format. So whenever you import or export it out of the camera and onto a timeline for a post-processing program, you're going to see it convert into 30 frames per second. So just be aware of that. And then also, I got bit on this a couple of times. When you get done shooting 120 frames per second and you disable it in the camera defaults back to 1080p 60 frames per second. So just be aware of that. Even if you have your camera programmed to shoot 4K 24 frames per second, if you enable the 120 frames per second and then disable it, your camera's automatically going to default back to 1080p 60 frames per second. So be aware of that. So if you are going to do some more shooting, regular shooting after the 120 frames per second, please make sure you go back and you set your camera settings again to what you originally shoot in. It's a pain in the butt, and I've made this mistake a couple of times. So just be aware of that. All right, I have one more note and then I have a warning, and then we'll get into the footage. My last note that I need to tell you guys is making sure that you guys understand that the M6 Mark II does not utilize autofocus during slow motion. You have to manual focus or rely on your focus peaking to get your subjects in focus. You can pre-focus, but as soon as you hit the record button, autofocus goes away, and audio is not recorded during slow motion at all on either camera. The R6, on the other hand, you have slow motion, autofocus, eye detect, animal detect, people, eye detect, all that. So you're good to go if you want to do slow motion there. Now, my warning, plan your slow motion shots, especially if you're using the M6 Mark II. You get about 12 minutes worth of slow motion, and then the camera overheats. The R6, I shot for about an hour and a half. I never saw an indication of overheating. So I think the R6 is going to do a little bit better with slow motion than the M6 Mark II. So just be aware of that. All right, let's go ahead and get on to some footage. Like I said in the previous video, I'm going to try to go out, and as soon as I get usable footage, I'll throw it up here and kind of talk about it. I think the quality might be very, very similar. I'm going to show it to you guys full frame or just full sensor, and then I'm going to crop in 50% because sometimes, wildlife is just far enough away that you can't really necessarily see detail. So I want to crop in a little bit on the sensor or on the footage, and let's see if you guys can see the quality difference. Starting out with the R6. This is at 100%, and quality looks pretty good. These were on tripods. The eagles have been hanging out here for quite a while, and like I had mentioned in the last video, 100 yards away. Quality difference here, took a big hit, and I just cropped in 50% on the R6. Yeah, and I'm not following the eagles like I said before because it's on a tripod. And then just for giggles, I did 200% here. And definitely a degradation of the quality of the footage. Same eagle, this one's going to take off here. So back to the 100% shot here. looks pretty good. Still far away, 100%. And the camera was doing its autofocus on the Eagle. And then 150%. Definitely quality took a hit here. And yeah, just slow motion is really cool, especially with birds landing and taking off. I really like that. And then 200. I didn't do 200% with the M6 Mark II, just because I couldn't get both Eagles in the frame. And definitely the quality is not so good, cropped in 100%. Now moving on to the M6. Again, I had to use focus peaking, manual focus, and yeah, I don't think that quality is all that great. I mean, they were in focus. Oh, yeah, this is definitely not that good. So 150%. I just can't stop looking at these things. They're, even if the quality is not that good. So side by side now, you can definitely see the R6 looking much better at 100%. There you go. All right, so the next thing I'm going to end up doing is throwing some pictures of an American coot up here. I end up going to the Hassayampa River Preserve, and I got a couple of shots closer in so you can actually really see the detail in the birds. And then let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm starting out with the M6 Mark II. This coot's probably about, I don't know, 15 feet in front of me. Looks pretty good. And I was using the manual focus. As you can see here, the robin is completely out of focus. And then the focus peaking kicked in here, and then I kind of got a little bit of it in focus. Same here, really close to me, and I'm operating the manual focus ring on the 250 millimeter lens, and you can see it kind of dropping in and out as the American coot is moving. It's just delicate, so you have to be really good at manual focus if you're going to use slow motion on the M6 Mark II. Got a hermit thrush here, just taking off, just landing birds and taking off birds. Pretty cool. And then this one I had it set on my backpack as I was sitting on the bench, and the image stabilized lens does really good. And then again, a bird taking off here. They just look cool when they take off and land. Now on to the R6. Again, a coot. This one's pretty good distance away. In the animal eye detect, you'll see here, it's working, and then as soon as it gets by the bush, it's going to drop out of focus. It just loses the eye. Right about here. Yeah, it catches the branch, and there you go. And then again, the robin, the camera was locked on to the robin's eye, and I was probably about 75 yards away here, and just using the in-body image stabilization. And then another American coot. And I think I had this sitting on top of my backpack as well. And then we're going to finish off with the hummingbird. Me and my hummingbirds. I'm just amazed what they look like in the air with those wings moving so fast. And then punching in here. This one was pretty difficult, but again, in-body image stabilization works really well. There it goes. So there you guys have it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you can tell a quality difference between the two individual cameras. You just need to pay attention to your in-body image stabilization with the lens. If you can pair those two things up, I think slow motion would really, really work really well on the R6. The M6 Mark II, you definitely need an image stabilized lens, and you need to plan your slow-mo. Otherwise, your camera's going to overheat within 12 minutes. I think that's all I have for you guys today. Give me a like, a thumbs up, turn on that bell notification. If you're not a subscriber, do me a favor, subscribe. I mean, if you're liking this this kind of content, do me a favor and just subscribe. That mean a lot to me. And I don't say this all the time, but if you guys are ever interested in any of my equipment, I have affiliate links in the description of this video. So if you're curious or if you want to buy or upgrade to a different camera, or just interested in studio equipment or just what I have, I get a small commission from it. It's not much, but it helps this channel out a lot. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.